Developing this morning, China pulling the broadcast of the Boston Celtics season opening game after Senator Enes Kanter criticized Beijing for its treatment of Tibet and called President Xi a dictator.
Oh, look at him sleeping. He's like a little angel that killed 50 million people. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
The system is broken. The glass ceiling is still in place, and there are significant failings in the power structures within our institutions. We are here because it's unfathomable that we are still having to fight this same stale, tired fight.
China. I have to have my China. China because China.
Welcome to the New Flesh Podcast, the podcast you deserve. My name is Jonathan Astro. With me is Ricky Allpike. Ricky, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Ni hao.
Oh, he's starting big. Oh, yeah. Well, that is a good intro to our first topic. We've look now. You know, I think we need to have a regular feature about the Chinese Communist Party. Now, I've come up with a name. I think it could. We can get some user feedback. You know, I'm not like married to it, so we can change it. But I think it should be "You're Down with CCP." Mm-hmm. So, you know, I don't know if you know that Naughty by Nature song, but it goes a little something like, you know, if we were to use it for the segment, it would be, "You down with CCP? Yeah, you know me. You down with CCP? Yeah, you know," like that, you know? So that's how it would go. So you're down with CCP. I am down with CCP. And today, that's our first topic. And later on, we'll be discussing some spiciness in Parliament House, which we'll get to after the news. So, Ricky, talk to me. What are those rascals at the CCP been up to?
Well, they seem to be in cahoots with Disney. So recently, Disney's streaming channel, Disney Plus, has launched in Hong Kong. So Disney Plus includes the entire catalogue of The Simpsons. And there seems to be a little controversy, however, around episode 12 of season 16. So in this particular episode, The Simpsons travel to China to help Marge's sister Selma adopt a Chinese baby. And during their visit in China, they visit the mummified body of Mao Zedong, whom Homer likens to a little angel who killed 50 million people. They also pass through Tiananmen Square, where a sign can be seen stating, "On this site in 1989, nothing happened." And there's also a strong reference in there to Tank Man as well. So this is all controversial stuff in China and cannot be spoken of. China banned all foreign cartoons in 2006, but in 2014, The Simpsons were allowed back, excluding episode 12, of course, on Chinese TV. So Disney Plus is really playing China's game of censoring regime-critical content by keeping this allegedly scandalous episode away from the eyes and ears of Hong Kongers. And what's curious is Disney's removal of this episode, it appears to be voluntary. So it's not something the CCP ordered them to do or, you know, gave them some sort of ultimatum. It's like they got in early and went, you know, they're not going to like it, so let's just take it down. Nothing to see here. So they just decided, I guess the bigwigs up at the top decided just to memory hole this cultural artifact. It's all just so that the people of Hong Kong are not going to see something that mocks their oppressors in Beijing. But the irony, though, it's almost too much, because Disney has done what the episode did so well with their sign on this site in 1989, nothing happened. When Hong Kong viewers jump from episode 11 to 13, they're essentially being told, on this cultural platform in 2005, nothing happened. So it does get better, because in 2020, Disney released a very saccharine BLM support video. And I don't know if you saw this video. I did send it to you.
I watched this and I remember it. It's a real bummer. It's like, or just really saccharine, as you say. And it's like a range of you know, like black people, young and whatever, just sort of staring at the camera, looking sad, with fade in, fade out over some very serious music.
Yep. And then there's text that comes up, and the text is listening, learning, healing. We stand for humanity. We stand for solidarity. We stand for justice. Speaking up because Black Lives Matter.
It's already so out of context. Like, you know, I don't know if you know, unless you're a lifer, that whole 2020 sort of psychosis that went on is, fueled by lockdowns and whatever, is now a thing of the past pretty much. And just looking at that, I was looking at this going, wow, you'll never be able to explain this ad to anyone in the future.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. People will go, what? Was there like some big
They'll
genocide?
be like, they'll be like, oh, so was it like,
Did they kill thousands of black people in America?
Indiscriminately or something. And you go, oh, no, well, there was this, terrible singular case. And you go, oh, yeah, that video is terrible. That's an appalling murder. It's terrible. Was there 1,000 others? You go, no, it was just that one in America.
Yeah.
And then the world lost its mind. The entire world in places where the cops didn't even have guns.
Yeah.
And in places
like in Britain.
in places that are so incredibly intermingled, intermarriaged, intermixed, and just have got these wonderful diverse cultures, and they're like walking around with these signs, and you just go, oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
This is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, but I think opponents of that would say, oh, no, that's not true because, black people are getting killed on the streets all the time. But if you actually look at the statistics, and I don't know the exact number, but I did recently hear about someone who did a survey, and in the US, they found that they basically asked average everyday people, like, how many black people get killed by cops every year? And it ranged from like 500 to 10,000 is what people thought a year. And it's like, I think 13 in 2019. It's 13 black people. That's in a country of, 350 million people. Police have millions of interactions every year with the public. And out of that, you get 13 black police shootings. And a lot of those are also perpetrated by black policemen or Hispanic policemen. So,
sure,
when you look at those sorts of statistics, and then you look at this ad campaign, you go, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's not to diminish the tragedy of anyone being killed by a policeman. I don't think anyone should be killed full stop in that sort of way. I think every life lost that way is a tragedy. But when you put it into context, you go, well, it's not the deal they're talking about here in these sorts of marketing videos. But what's interesting about this is, do Chinese lives matter? CLM, yeah. And Disney's recent Mulan film thanked 8 government entities in China, including Zhanjing, home to the persecuted Uyghur people. And you get your woke celebs like Colin Kaepernick and LeBron James taking the knee, talking Black Lives Matter, but at the same time, Nike, is manufacturing their signature shoes over in China using slave labor. How can they not speak up about it? And now I've got this great quote that I've taken from Brendan O'Neill in Spiked. He recently wrote about this. The China question exposes the hollowness, the flimsiness, the look at me posturing nature of so much 21st century virtue signaling. These people strike a camera-friendly pose against fashionable injustices, but they go stumm in the face of genuine injustice. Perhaps profits matter more than lives. So my big problem is that Disney hasn't just come out and said, we want to make money in China and this is the price of doing business. Like, I'd respect them more if they did that, if they went, listen, we want to make money and this is just what we have to do. But also, I don't think they should be able to do social justice messages and work with oppressive regimes. They have to choose. It's one or the other, So I think on the Black Lives Matter issue, they should just be silent. If anyone asks the heads at Disney what their views are on defund the police or George Floyd, they can just say, we're a film company that specializes in kids' films and cartoons. We don't comment on politics,
Well, what they would say is, and this is what other companies have said, they'd say, oh, we've done the research, and research shows that people want us to more and more to speak out on socio-political issues. They don't want us to be silent. They want us to engage. Engagement is king and key to capturing the markets we want to engage with. And you go, so that's the sort of the heart of this woke capitalist movement, is they're saying, because there has to be some people at this company who want that world that we're talking about, the world where they could just, be Warner Brothers and just make a movie and put it out, and then not have to come out every day and say trans lives matter while you're trying to make Unforgiven.
Yeah, but what's happening though is that's filtering through into their work though, and we've seen it with, we see it with Star Wars. Disney's taken over Star Wars now. Like
Dreadful.
They've completely trashed that franchise, and they're doing it with everything, injecting all this wokeness into it, and it's that is going to hurt their bottom line way more than staying silent about these sorts of social and political
I've talked
issues.
about this before. This is only a side note before we continue on with the company itself. But all the stuff that people talk about with Disney, like if you take, your typical sort of kooky girl in her 20s with blue hair who loves Disney movies. Okay. I don't know if you know this type. They're out there. If you want to know the Disney movies they love, Little Mermaid, Lion King, Aladdin, okay, all that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. They're not talking about the new shit. Okay. Even if they've got the Trans Lives Matter sticker, because the quality of this stuff diminished, over time. Basically, when they were focused on being a film company, their work in this realm was very good. Do you know what I mean? And now their work is dreadful.
Yeah.
So, as you say, that's just to say that it has filtered down into the work. Like it's unwatchable, their stuff now. It's unwatchable. Yeah. Absolutely unwatchable. I wouldn't force my kid to watch it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, my kid's not old enough to watch Star Wars yet, but I'm not going to be pushing any of the new shit on him, even the prequels. I mean, they suck. But I would actually prefer the prequels over what Disney's done to,
Absolutely.
To Star Wars. But I watch so many old Disney films with my son, and he loves them. The Robin Hood from 1960, whatever. 101 Dalmatians, even as far back as Bambi and Snow White. Like it's just really good storytelling and good art, and if they want to keep progressing and keep making films and projects and stuff, they're going to have to drop this woke stuff.
Well, they're going to have to drop it, and they're going to have a decision internally about. I mean, how much money would they lose if they just turned around and said, we make films and TV, and we need subscribers, and we're not interested in politics. Like, how much would they honestly lose? Like, are there that many people out there who would be that disappointed about that?
I think it's whatever their research is that they're doing is, I think...
We went down to Brooklyn and we asked...
Well, that's the thing. It's very skewed. It's very skewed.
No, you say that, but we also went to Portland and we checked out what they want to, and we went to Seattle and we asked them, and also San Francisco. Yeah. So we asked... a lot of people about what they want, and what they want is they desperately want the Walt Disney Company to constantly remind people about social issues and politics. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so stupid. But this is where it gets exciting, is China, because, we've had the domestic struggles over the last couple of years in America, and now that we've got a genuine autocracy, a terrible dictatorship, run, with essentially an oppressed people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Carrying out human rights violations, appalling human rights violations on an embarrassing scale, and becoming increasingly belligerent as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now these companies are going to look really fucking stupid because they've all been shaking their ass for the CCP for so many years now, the NBA and Disney and all of that.
Yeah.
And now that the terrible stuff's starting to happen, it's going to become very awkward, I think. Like now, what are they going to do? That there's that player on the NBA who Megyn Kelly interviewed this week, who
Enes Kanter Freedom.
Enes Kanter Freedom has come out, and he's a lone voice at the moment, but I think people are going to join. And
he's a fascinating guy, and he gives me a lot of hope for things changing, because he's a Turkish guy. He now is a USA citizen. He plays for the Boston Celtics. He's a center, and he's been really outspoken about Turkish human rights. And then he sort of someone asked him once, well, why aren't you talking about China? And then he's done a bit of research into that, and he's starting to call people out. Even King James himself, LeBron James, he's saying, hey man, why aren't you talking about China? So he's really exciting, and he's pushing hard because I think on his sneakers he put free Tibet, and he played a game, and before he even got on court, a spokesperson from the NBA said, you need to take those shoes off. And he said, there's no way I'm taking these shoes off. Like, I'm wearing these shoes whether I play a minute or not. And he ended up wearing those shoes. And I think that game got banned from viewership.
Celtics games.
The Celtics. Well, was it Celtics games like for the whole season, or was it just
I'm
that
not
particular
sure,
game?
but all we know is that there was some banning that went on.
That's right, yeah. And he's talked to the head of the NBA and said, listen, am I breaking any rules here? And the head of the NBA says no. So he's going to continue doing this sort of stuff. And I think it's just going to explode. People are going to take notice of this sort of stuff, particularly because there are so many American companies that are wrapped up with China.
But if you've sold yourself as being, politically engaged, or to use, or woke, or whatever you want to call it, if you've sold yourself as that, and you've now pivoted your business like Gillette or something, then what are you going to do? When you've got to sort of stick by your guns and go, oh no, now there's an appetite for to come out against one of our, our main sort of audiences. Like, what is the NBA going to do? What are they going to do? They are in a lot of strife, because now that the tennis associations come out and said, we're not going to play any games in China, and now that Australia has followed the US, the first country to follow the US and not send a diplomatic delegation to the Beijing Olympics, there's going to be the dominoes will fall after this. Yeah. So what are they going to do? Is the NBA just going to go, oh yeah, well, we don't.
I think they're just going to lose money. They're just going to have to take a hit and say, whatever happens, like, we're going to make a stand, and China's either going to keep broadcasting us, and we're going to make money from China, or they're just going to ban us completely. But they've just got to take the hit, and players have got to stand up and say, I don't mind taking a hit. Someone like LeBron James that gets paid hundreds of millions of dollars a year to play, he needs to say, listen, I'm prepared to take a hit financially if that's what it means to stand up against China. But LeBron James, he just sounds like, obviously I don't know him personally, but he sounds like a real piece of work, because he's come out and called Enes Kanter Freedom. He basically said, you're an opportunist, you're doing it just for selfish reasons, coming out talking about China,
Yeah, well, God, what do you say? LeBron comes across, on his online profiles as a bit of a dummy. I hate to say that. I don't like to use that kind of language, but he really does come across as a bit of a low altitude flyer, and I don't know what to say. He sort of is just incredibly arrogant, and I can understand why he just doesn't like being criticized. That's all. So I hope more and more companies stand their ground and fight the good fight against what is a genuine a serious threat to democracies across the world. Just ask Africa. Just ask some of the struggling countries that now owe incredible amounts of money to China, purposefully done, of course. This is just going to get out of control, So I think everyone, like, this is Soviet Union stuff.
Yeah.
And people need to, sort of stand at post, I think.
Well, needless to say, I think this podcast was already banned before we talked about these topics, but we're definitely banned in China now.
We are. Oh, well. Look, it's a bit of a dark subject, but do you want some news, maybe?
Yes, let's do it. All right. Sheila, hit us with the news.
Hi, guys. Okay. Look, I love this story so much. It's got so many different elements to it. Delta passenger on a flight from Syracuse to Atlanta was breastfeeding her hairless cat and refused to stop.
That sounds painful.
Like quotes in this. I even read the whole article and it was delightful. I'm so glad I did. That she had it swaddled like a baby.
Some babies are so ugly that wouldn't you kind of think for a second that it might be a baby?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure people did.
Well, it is hairless, right?
Yeah.
Bigglesworth.
Bigglesworth.
Her shirt was up and she was trying to get the cat to latch on and she wouldn't put the cat back in the carrier and the cat was screaming for its life.
Okay. That's horrible. Okay.
So did it ever latch on, if we confirmed that or not?
No. But Delta fully supports a woman's right to breastfeed on board Delta and Delta Connection aircraft in Delta facilities.
Mm-hmm.
It is unlikely that the airline's pro-lactation stance extends to human passengers nursing animals.
Yes. Okay. Well, no, I got a question. So as far as I know, I'm not sure what the laws are, but I thought the rule was, that generally speaking, that, the man code is when there's a baby on a titty, it's suddenly not a titty. But if you just get a titty out and you have a cat around, I think that's just a sex act. Like, isn't that just no? But if you just pop a titty out and I go, oh, I'm also holding a cat. Whatever you're trying to do with it doesn't matter. Well, it's probably bestiality, but like, you know what I mean? Like, if there's just a cat around and you've lobbed a titty out, then that's public nudity or a sex crime or something. Whereas, am I getting it wrong or? And I'm very generous to cats. I would think we should give them a lot more play, but I just feel like I thought the rule was because you can't breastfeed a cat.
and if this becomes allowed, an acceptable thing,
it's not going to become allowed.
But if it does it then extend to adult humans as well? So your husband, Irene. Your husband's a bit thirsty. They're a bit slow with the meal cart, the drinks cart. Flop it out, Bitty. I'm thirsty. Let's go.
I don't know, but it has to go into my top 3.
Very good. Very good.
It's a wonderful headline and a wonderful article. Thank you, Daily Mail. Thank you.
They've outdone themselves.
Thank you for taking time out from vilifying women for their granny panties. Okay, so now look, this has been in the news a lot, and this is so wonderful. It's a feel-good story. The 4-day lock-in finally comes to an end. Punters claim their biggest concern was beer running dry, and landlady says she'd like to listen to Blur after snow left them stuck in Yorkshire pub with Oasis tribute act since Friday.
Fucking hell.
So
really drops you in it, that headline.
I know. Look, and once again, thanks, Daily Mail. Not one comma to be seen.
That headline is the article.
It is. Why do you guys even comment on that anymore? Honestly, this is
no. But I think that one is the longest one we've ever had. Surely,
it's pretty long. And because the thing is, I get confused because I don't know where to take my breath.
Well, no, but also it's so teasing because they're quite clever because you're holding your breath the whole time because you want, as a listener, because you want to know where the fuck this is, and they tell you at the very end, and you go, oh, okay.
So this is fantastic. So the snowstorm Arwen was raging in England, and 61 staff, guests and musicians, they got cut off by 3 feet of snow at Britain's highest pub, the Tan Hill. And basically they were snowed in for 3 days. Luckily, the landlady had ordered heaps and heaps of food because they were having a Queen tribute act the next night, which obviously couldn't make it. So, people were she had to make a rule that no one was allowed to start drinking until 3 p.m. each day. And this just sounds like the best Yeah, well, I mean, the best music festival anyone's ever been to. And the Oasis tribute band was called Noasis.
Now, I'm not a very big drinker, but I think that would actually be quite fun to be caught up in that. Because you're like, we've got enough food and drink, we've got a band, there's nothing I can do, I can't get out, so I may as well have a good time. You know?
Yeah. These people said it was just absolute fun and shits and giggles. They had a great time. And
did they make the band play continuously for 3 days?
I think the band played a lot, and that's why the landlady said she'd like to listen to a bit of Blur.
Was that because she's had enough of Oasis?
She's had enough of Noasis, yes.
Noasis.
Yeah.
Don't look back in anger. I've heard that. Can you just play, some Blur? What about some Pulp?
Yeah. But it's from that specific time, right? Yeah. What about some Elastica?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so anyway, I just love that. I think these people had the time of their lives, and what a way to get stuck somewhere. When I was stuck in an English snowstorm, I was stuck at the in France, I was stuck in the Gare du Nord in freezing conditions. So overnight. So, these guys had a great time.
No Oasis for you. And I think you probably were there sort of when they were big. So,
I was actually. Oh, that was another time when I was in the Eurostar and it caught fire. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, next cab off the rank, we have He's Toxic. Texas substitute teacher is relieved of duty after turning up to high school with karaoke machine and lights before belting out Britney Spears' hit from his desk.
Which hit?
Toxic.
How did I miss that?
Video shows him belting out bricks. There's video of him belting out Britney Spears' song Toxic to an accompanying light show.
Now, John, you thought it was like toxic masculinity, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they wanted me to think?
I don't know.
No. He was doing a full tribute act from his desk.
But wait, what happened to him? Did he?
He got sacked as a substitute teacher. I don't know. I think, God, compared to some of the substitute teachers I've had in the past, he sounds pretty good.
But was he dressed like Britney or anything?
No.
Oh, he'd probably get a promotion now.
Oh, come on, John. Oh, look at you two.
Definitely would. He definitely would.
You guys have got a Bettina hangover is what you've got, okay? You've got a Bettina hangover. Don't pull that shit here during the news.
Bettina has got me all charged up. But no, all jokes aside, Britney is look, that's tough. I don't know what the infraction there was. Like, well, then again, if they've got work to do, they're meant to be doing work and you're just like not doing the job. Well, then I don't know what to say. Like, but if he was making it educational, I don't know about what.
He's a substitute teacher. Who cares? No, but
you've got to put on at least a bit of a show, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't you sort of half have to put on a show?
How's the little stooges who took video of him and, they could have just gone, this is really fun. But instead, now they're probably stuck with someone really boring.
Well, that's unfortunate. Britney Spears is on TikTok, and I'm a little worried about Britney. She doesn't look well.
Well, she's been in a pretty stern conservatorship where she had to, ask for, I think, tampons and pads. So, I think she's probably just getting her groove on now. She's got a bit of freedom, and
she's got a very she does these videos, like, I don't know, she's got some tripod that she's putting it on or something, and she's like, she just doesn't look with it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
is she dancing and singing?
Oh, all of it. Like, well, no. So and you shouldn't just hassle people for not putting on makeup and stuff, but she just looks really rough, like big bags under the eyes, and you're like, oh God, Britney, just get some sleep, Oh
no, I think she's, she has mental health struggles, but plenty of people have mental health struggles, and they're not put under that kind of guardianship. but because there was dollars involved, I think when they really sort of get to the bottom of things, they're going to find out some pretty awful stuff. So, yeah, she probably isn't that well.
Yeah, no, look, but it's one of those things like, I don't know much about what situation she's in now, but yeah, it's just scary to see her like, I mean, it's better than her being locked up or whatever. But at the same time, she's just got this like if you were around her, you'd be doing a lot of awkward smiling and nodding. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, I mean, plenty of people do awkward smiling and nodding around us three. Do you know what I mean? So, and
True.
we've got agency of ourselves and we say mad cunt shit. So she's got some agency. All right, here we go. Would you apply? Tech firm will pay a brave volunteer £150,000 to use their face on its robots, which will work in hotels, shopping malls and airports by 2023.
Wait, is this the beginning of what Willy Wonka did when he chose the Oompa Loompa?
Yeah.
Well, that he, sort of copied.
You and Ricky, imagine that. Welcome to the, the
I'd
Madison Hotel.
No, but imagine that, Ricky. You go, okay, and they go, okay, now we're also going to have it on all these other robots, and then you find out they've put it on all these sex robots. that is your face staring into a man's eyes as you give him hand relief.
Yeah.
I
want that.
Or
even
if you're
more
one
now.
of those mouth robots, awful.
And then and you go, I'm famous, but with only sleaze bags.
Yeah.
I'll be walking down the road, people recognize me.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if I'd do it. Would you do it?
For how much? How much is it?
£150,000. So what's that? Like $200,000?
Yep, I'd do it.
Okay. On what are the robots? They're just service robots, are they?
Oh, you always do this to me. You want me to read more of this
Story. It's a good
thing.
story.
I know, but the rule
I'm just going to leave it.
I don't
right.
read them.
No, well, I will think about it. So, okay. No, it is a lot of money, and you might as well, I guess. But
also you got to think about when they're going to be widely used. Probably not for 20 years, right?
Well, Ricky, 2023, and is when they're going to start hotels, shopping malls, and airports.
But surely the rollout will take a while.
Would be. I mean, what a legacy! What a legacy! But the company is Promobot.
Do I get to keep my name? Do they all get to be called Ricky?
Oh, I don't know.
That'd be good.
Like a Johnny Cab in Total Recall.
Johnny Cab.
Yeah. So there you go. Think about that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have to apply.
All right. Now this one is for me because there is a photo of these guys and I love them so much. I am their biggest fan. They are so cool, these dudes. And it is something that I can imagine my friend and I doing. Okay, here's the headline. Keep korma and carry on eating. 2 Indian wedding guests can't bring themselves to walk away from the free buffet as fire rages behind them. Now, these 2 guys are so cool. I love them so much. They are just eating because the food is so good. There's this massive blaze behind them and everyone's sort of, getting up and leaving and stuff. And they are just sitting there eating their beautiful food.
Best review ever. Best review of your food ever. Like, people say, how good's your food? And you say, let me put it this way. I know 2 blokes who ate my food until probably one of them died of smoke inhalation.
It's really, honestly, the fire was getting dangerously close to these guys and they are just casually eating their beautiful buffet. So I love those guys.
That's great. We should all take, that's inspirational story.
They're
Food
my
to die
spirit
for.
animals.
You said food to die for. That's good. Very good.
Okay, now this is one. This is just for me as a feminist.
No, the last one was for you.
Well, was it?
Yes, you said it's for you. That was for you. Now this it's very selfish.
This is another one for me. I've got a couple for you guys. Shush.
Imagine on the news they say, this one's for me.
I'm Jennifer Kite and this one's for me.
And this one's for me.
Yes. Okay. So here we go. Irish lesbian woman, 27, reveals doctors have refused her a hysterectomy to solve her debilitating period pain in case she later stopped being gay and met a man who wanted children. That is fucking outrageous, you bastard doctors.
They didn't say that.
Fuck you. Fuck you, doctors.
Is this an island?
Yes.
But they're woke.
No, they're not. They're Catholic.
Yeah, you can't get abortions in Ireland.
But I thought Ireland was a little bit woke.
No, they're not.
No.
Really? Sorry, Ireland.
I went to Ireland once. I never saw so many white people in my life.
Oh, God.
Oh.
Everyone was white and everyone was young and had at least 3 or 4 children.
Wow.
I'm like, that woman there, she's like 22 and she's got 4 kids.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
That is crazy. Well, okay, so this woman...
who has a wife named Karen. Now, this is outrageous. So anyway, I'm appalled by this story. I'm appalled by those doctors.
Yeah,
Go fuck yourself,
awful.
dudes.
Well, that's really strange. That sounds, it sounds really weird.
I would perhaps forgive it if the person was like 14 or 15, but 27?
27-year-old lesbian with a wife.
Imagine.
I mean, come on.
Well, I don't know. It's really tricky now because the left has destroyed sort of gay rights. They've destroyed gay rights. So this is a strange story now. You know, like this should be front page news, really, with the sort of appalling discrimination that's going on. But because, the loonies are running the asylum, basically, we're being told that, you can just opt in and out of anything,
Yeah.
And so it maybe these doctors are emboldened by the hard left and they're just saying, oh, well, just look, you can just stop being gay. And she's like, well, I can't. I like it. That's all I like. That's all.
Do you think
I
if she said she was trans, that it would be much easier?
Oh my God.
Because I'm a trans. She could say I'm a trans man. I don't want this anymore. So.
Well, I mean, that's a really interesting point. Because I mean, irrespective of whether she's gay or not, just as a female, I'm really tired of this rhetoric from the medical community. Like because I've got friends who don't want children. They've never wanted children. They wanted to have hysterectomies from the time they were like 20. And they haven't been able to do that because they've been like, oh no, what if you change mine? It's like, well, motherfucker, if I'm an adult and I'm coming to you and I'm signing the form and saying I am of sound mind, I don't want this. Who are you to say, oh, but you might, oh, you silly young woman, you might change your mind. You might want babies. It's like, well, not every woman wants babies, dickheads. Why do you have to put that on us?
Isn't it fascinating, though, that if you said that to a trans person, you would be the biggest transphobe. You'd be run out of town. If you said to a trans woman, like, you might regret that double mastectomy.
Yeah. Well, exactly, Ricky. That is such a good point. So sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say this is another example of women getting the short end of the stick. Women have been totally fucked over by this new ideology the most. It's appalling, and they've been totally abandoned by all their heroes as well. Margaret Atwood, all of them. They just have run for the hills in order to be trendy and fashionable, and it's a disgrace.
Oh, look. Oh, it's taken us down a dark path, boys. So here we go. This is possibly the most outrageous headline ever. Piers Morgan, put your gloating champagne away, Princess Pinocchio. The court of public opinion now knows you're a fork-tongued, devious, manipulative piece of work who only wants to protect your privacy so you can sell it.
Is this
Meghan
Markle? Going after?
Yeah.
He's obsessed with her. It's like he's like a dude that was told, "I don't want to fuck you." That's in the headline. I mean, that is something else.
Well, I have a very low opinion of Meghan Markle and Princess Harry. I hate them. I think they should just fuck off. I hate them.
I don't like them.
I don't like them one bit. They can fuck off.
Yeah,
Okay,
I know.
What's
why?
exciting is Piers. Piers is actually coming to Australia. He's going to be working for Sky News.
Oh wow!
Oh, okay. Is he moving to Australia permanently?
Not quite sure.
Is that
but
why they shuffled off Alan?
Yes. Well, they offered Alan Jones a different show that wasn't so prime time to make room for Piers, and Alan turned that down. But I think Piers is coming down under.
Delicious.
Yep.
It's gonna be great.
Oh,
So
there we go.
So thanks, Sheila.
all right,
Okay.
thanks, Sheila.
Thanks, guys.
If you enjoy what we do here on the New Flesh podcast, there are a number of ways you can contribute to the success of the show. Consider supporting us financially by becoming a Patreon member and donating monthly or yearly. Alternatively, you can donate money through the Buy Me a Coffee platform. If you're strapped for cash at this point in time, there are a number of other ways to support the New Flesh. You can give us a rating or review through Apple Podcasts. These help others to find our show and help spread the word. Or you can tell your friends about us. Don't underestimate the power of a podcast recommendation. And now, back to the show. All right, John, now we're going to wade into some local issues now, some Australian issues.
Yes.
And you want to talk about what the fuck's happening in the National Parliament.
Yes, I'll try and add in some context for our overseas listeners, just in case, why should basically recently there's been some talk that, there's been a lot of things that have happened. There's a sex discrimination report that's come out, and there's a big discussion about gender and equality and sexual harassment and all the rest of it. And I think it's important because this is happening everywhere, certainly in Western countries. I can't speak for other countries. I know that everyone's wrestling with these issues. There's sort of national discussions going on. So I think it'll be important just to hear. So in Australia this week, a woman called Kate Jenkins, who is the Sex Discrimination Commissioner at the Australian Human Rights Commission, released a report. It's just been called the Jenkins Report. It was undertaken after sexual assault claims from March 2021, earlier this year. So one of the triggers was a case of a woman called Brittany Higgins, a Liberal staffer. So when I say Liberal, I mean our Conservative Party, right-wing party, a Liberal staffer who was sexually assaulted late in the evening at Parliament House. That's where all it gets done. All the action happens in Canberra there, political action, that is. So the Morrison government, our government, went into overdrive to either, depending on what you think, they either wanted to change the culture or they're just trying to save their butts. They commissioned this report. So this is from our ABC. This is an article. Parliament has a boys' club culture of bullying, sexual harassment and sexual assault. Here are the proposals to fix it. On Tuesday, a report detailing the experiences of hundreds of people who work in federal parliament was released, painting a pretty sobering picture of the kind of behaviour many employees have faced. The review done by Sex Discrimination Commissioner Kate Jenkins was sparked in the wake of Britney Higgins' rape allegations earlier this year. The headline figures included that 1 in 3 people had experienced some kind of sexual harassment, and over half reported some kind of bullying, harassment, or real or attempted sexual assault. As a result, Ms. Jenkins and her team made 28 recommendations to help improve the culture and support systems in place. Here are some of the key ones: gender and diversity targets, alcohol rules, codes of conduct, respect in the chambers, and support services. So just to give you an idea of the scope of the report, it was around 1,700 individuals across 33 organisations. There was 935 survey responses, 490 interviews, 300 written submissions, 11 focus groups. Gender, there was significantly more women, so 1,000 females or women, 500 men, 9 non-binary people, 2 other, and 134 not provided. So that should give you an idea of just who was asked about this. And
but what's interesting is, and I've read sort of the executive summary of this thing, and I've got some stats to add to that. So it said that they only received 23% of all people currently working in Commonwealth workplaces took part in this survey. So that's almost a quarter. So it's not representative of the entire workforce there. 37% of people experience some form of bullying. 33% experience some form of sexual harassment. 1% experience some form of actual or attempted sexual assault. And women experienced higher sexual harassment at a higher rate, 40% compared with men, 26%. Men were more likely to perpetrate sexual harassment, while women were more likely to bully. So
I wondered if you were going to pick that out. I'm definitely going to talk about that.
Yes. So that, and it's interesting going through this thing because there are some stats where you go, well, hang on a minute, like they're painting it all as this boys' club, but then you're saying most people are getting bullied by women. And I'm sure you're going to open up this can of worms, but it is just interesting actually, and no one, well, not no one, but very few people are actually going to go through and read this thing because it is filled with bureaucratic jargon and it is a bit of a mission to read through this thing. But yeah, I guess what I want to do is highlight some of these statistics that mainstream media probably are not going to address.
So we got a couple of ways we could do it. Do you want to? We can tease out that stuff and then talk about Brittany Higgins, or we can go back to the big start and talk about Brittany and then circle back to the report.
Well, I think we should talk about Brittany first. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So
circle back.
So the first incident that sort of one of the first things that sparked this was a case of Brittany Higgins. Now, this has been everywhere in the paper. It's one of those stories that is sort of really pervasive. It's everywhere. It's in every goddamn article, but you sort of don't read it.
Yeah.
Did you do this? I was
I was aware. Like I was very aware of that name. Oh, I've heard Brittany Higgins before, and then I'm like, oh, something happened to her at Parliament House. Was basically as far as my knowledge went.
Yeah. So that's similar. So basically, she was a junior staffer for Defence Industry Minister Senator Linda Reynolds. 22nd of March 2019, Higgins was drinking with colleagues at a bar in Canberra. She returned to Parliament House, inebriated in the company of a male advisor. She thought she was actually going to be dropped home in a taxi, but instead her and this advisor colleague went to Parliament House. They were led in by security and then went to Reynolds' office. That's their boss, the senator's office. This is in the middle of the night. Higgins says she woke up to a rape occurring, and then security found her half naked the next morning. She was awake, conscious, but nude, and they sort of checked in every now and then, but didn't really disturb her. And then she sort of left the building at around 10 a.m. Higgins told her boss, soon after, and almost immediately there's been finger pointing about who knew what when, involving the PM, the Prime Minister, and other Liberals, and her boss and the rest of it. So Reynolds, her boss, has also been quoted calling her a lying cow in front of staff. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
So, she says it was about something else related to it or whatever. But anyway, that was an awkward thing that followed that senator. So Higgins reports the incident to police, then drops the complaint soon after in fear of her job. She transfers to another MP's office, Michaelia Cash. When she sort of resumes the report eventually, Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, writes a formal apology and then essentially greenlights the Jenkins report. So I got a little article here from SBS. Scott Morrison criticised for invoking his daughters in response to Brittany Higgins' rape allegations. He also apologised to Miss Higgins for what she experienced following the alleged incident in March 2019 and conceded the government had mishandled its response. Mr. Morrison said the announcement followed a discussion with his wife Jenny the previous night, and after he considered how he, as a father, would want his daughters to be treated. Quote, Jenny and I spoke last night and she said to me, you have to think about this as a father. What would you want to happen if it were our girls? He told reporters. Jenny has a way of clarifying things, always has. And so as I've reflected on that overnight and listened to Brittany and what she had to say, Mr. Morrison said he wants to make sure any young woman working in this place is safe as possible, as I would want for my own daughters. So Grace Tame, Australian of the Year, sexual assault survivor. I think we didn't mention her last week with Bettina Hunt, but we maybe should have. Grace has been very prolific this year and has commented about the PM's statement at the National Press Club, and she has said, this is from The Guardian, it shouldn't take having children to have a conscience, she told the National Press Club in Canberra on Wednesday. And actually, on top of that, having children doesn't guarantee a conscience. Cover-up culture, the abuse of power is not unique to Parliament, she said. So it's not necessarily these individual cases. It's the issue itself that's going to keep inspiring me to do this work. We also watched the couple of Four Corners episodes on this incident. They're available on YouTube for Brittany Higgins episode, and there's also a Grace Tame episode. So, Ricky, what did you make of this case of Brittany?
Well, I just have some questions, particularly because I watched that Four Corners episode on Brittany Higgins. I actually watched it twice, and what I just have some questions about is the media don't seem to do much probing into what happened at the bar before they go to Parliament. So Brittany Higgins has been drinking with this guy and a couple of other people until 2 a.m. They're very drunk, and I'm not suggesting that anything really, except that that's a pretty big part of the story, I think. And that's the situation that led to the taxi drive to Parliament. And I think it deserves just a little bit more attention and clarity. Like, did she ever ask why they needed to swing past Parliament House, And what reason did this particular staffer give to her and the taxi driver for stopping at Parliament at 2 in the morning,
Right.
So I don't know. I just think that's a part of the story that's maybe lacks a little bit of clarity there. Not to suggest that Brittany knew what they were going there for.
It's so funny though. I was thinking about this because we were talking to Bettina last week, and I thought I wrote down the question and then I deleted it for last night because I was like, oh, this is a cancelable question.
It is. I know
the cancelable question, like that because first you have to put forward, you have to say, look, this guy is a total creep, and as far as we know, a total lawbreaker. Other people have come out and back that up and whatever. But the question is there any I don't know, I don't want to use the word responsibility, but is there anything that went on at that bar that could have been handled differently, from Brittany's point of view? Now, some people have actually said that in more coarse ways and been fired immediately.
Yes.
There was a radio guy who said something to the effect of that, but in very coarse and flippant language, and he's gone. So I can imagine that what I just said now, but we said we were going to keep it 100. Okay. Now, this is the sort of thing that privately most people would be saying, right? Privately, it's like, husbands and wives, husbands and husbands, wives and wives, whatever. Privately, you and your family drunk on Christmas Day are going to say, oh yeah, but, if it was my daughter, I probably would say, why did you get so drunk, you dumbass, at the bar? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so that's which is not what I'm saying about Brittany. I'm just saying that is privately what you would say. But publicly, you have to say, you have to not say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I guess it also goes back to what we talked to Bettina about last week, about how essentially men have to take the risk in a sexual advancement, to get the ball rolling. And I'm not saying that they force themselves on anyone, but usually it's up to the man to take the risk, to lean in, to take the first kiss or whatever, So, and
actually, there's been a lot of details left out of this of that night, like which is unfortunate because we don't know. Well, at least from the Four Corners thing. I mean, I did quite a bit of reading about this, and I still couldn't ascertain as to whether she, the laws changed now, but at the time, did she say no? Did she push him away? Did she hit him? Did she? Was there anything by speech or action? Clearly well, the fact that she woke up, like that he was on the go, when she was asleep was breaking the law.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't do that.
But also, we know nothing about what happened from the time she checked in with the security guard, sort of at the front desk or whatever, and then waking up mid rape. There's no detail there.
And did they start and then she fell asleep, or wake up, or was she just out from the moment they stepped in the office? She was completely out. Yeah. And then woke up to it. You know what I mean? So
and this is exactly what Bettina was talking about last week. Like it's very hard to get to the truth when it's a he said, she said sort of situation, and that's why a lot of cases that go to court about this sort of stuff, they don't result in a conviction, because it's just you just can't tell who to believe, which is unfortunate. But I don't know how you get around that,
Mm.
But the other thing that I found interesting in this Four Corners report was they ask a lot about why no one alerted the authorities, particularly this female security guard who sort of signed them in.
Oh, they're trying to hang her.
They are indeed, but
I'm really sorry for her.
I just don't understand how you can contact the police when you have no crime, and when Brittany Higgins herself is unwilling to contact the police. Like, what do? You call the police up and say, I saw a naked woman in Parliament? Like, they're going to say, I've got better things to do than, deal with this.
This security guard handled herself very, very well. And I thought that she's totally people are trying to hang her, you can tell. And she has just said, they put some hard questions to her. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? She's, it's not my place. It's not my place. I opened the door. I looked in. She's half naked. She was conscious. It's not my, position to run in there. Like, it's the burden of knowledge as well. Now that obviously, the story's out there, everyone's like, oh, why didn't you run in there and, hit the DEFCON 4 button? And you go, well, because that, this was an evolving situation. Like she said, I've opened the door, and, a lot of, it's not her role to get involved in the business of what goes on in those offices, really.
Mm. Yeah.
And she was just trying to protect the girl's, modesty as well. Like, she's half naked. What do you do? This is a terrible situation.
Yeah. And it's not as though she didn't alert.
Thank God she took a note. She took notes of what
she did take notes, yeah, in her diary. But she let her supervisor know. She passed it on through the chain of command or whatever. Like,
I'm not a cop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you're a security guard. You're there to make sure the authorized people are allowed into the building, and unauthorized people aren't, and yes, they are authorized, and the rules are they can come into Parliament whenever they choose,
Absolutely. And it sounds like there are functions that go on, although this was a late night thing. There are, they do have functions. People do drink and get a bit loose. This was a lot more than that, but still, this wasn't completely 100% out of the realm of possibility. Do you know what I mean? And if it was, they wouldn't have let him in. Clearly, a couple of drunk MPs coming back, or going to and fro from the place is not completely out of the question.
So she didn't file any sort of official complaint until quite far after the fact. Is that correct?
I think so. Yes, because it was obviously, she started talking about it with colleagues so very soon after. And then it was, she hadn't really verbalized it because obviously a bit of trauma. And then, it sort of got to her boss, and then, she ends up putting the complaint in, but then withdraws, and then more. So it's quite a, back and forth process, quite prolonged, and then, she doesn't want to be, didn't want it to deep six her employment. So she pulled back the complaint.
Well, that seems to be a bit of a theme going through the report as well, is that there's that talk a lot about power imbalances and stuff like that, but also this idea that you have to stay loyal to your MP or your party, and that it's very hard to speak up about issues because it's quite a high pressure work environment.
But this is my first thing. Okay, so this report has come. Brittany Higgins is one of a few things that have been triggers for this report, the general vibe given from Grace Tame's appointment as Australian of the Year. She's a sexual assault survivor from when she was at high school, so she's obviously doing a lot of speaking about it. Then Brittany Higgins happens. There's been some stuff in the Parliament. I just have trouble with the Did you get the sense that there was a conflation of bullying, sexual assault, and sexual harassment in the Parliament and outside the Parliament in this report?
Yeah, totally.
That was my main thing, is that I read this and I was like, look, I understand why, all these things have made this report happen, but I'm not sure we're going to get the results they want, by conflating it all together. So it says here, it was conducted by the Australian Human Rights Commission, led by the Sex Discrimination Commissioner. This review was asked to make recommendations to ensure that the Commonwealth parliamentary workplaces are safe and respectful, and the nation's parliament reflects best practice in prevention and response to bullying, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. So those three things are all very different. So bullying, they say, this is their definitions, repeated and unreasonable behavior that is directed towards a worker or group of workers and creates a risk of physical or mental health and safety. Ooh. So next up, sexual assault, an act of sexual nature carried out against a person's will through the use of physical force, intimidation, or coercion, including any attempts to do this. This includes rape, attempted rape, aggravated sexual assault, and the rest of it. Okay. Sexual harassment, this is separate, is an unwelcome sexual advance, unwelcome request for sexual favors or other unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature, which, in the circumstances, a reasonable person aware of those circumstances would anticipate the possibility that the person would feel offended, humiliated, or intimidated. That is a staggering thing to say. So this second one, sexual assault, this is clearly what happened to Brittany Higgins. Yeah. And I think that is, we have laws against that. The police should definitely be involved. That guy needs to go down by the sounds of it. And that's all underway. So bullying is the first thing. And sexual harassment. Oh, this sexual harassment one is mind-boggling. So what did you think about this? Unwelcome request for sexual favors. Yeah, sure. Would you like to have sex with me? Well, that's a bit awkward. A reasonable person aware of those circumstances would anticipate the possibility that a person would feel offended. So there are a lot of people who have an inability to read a room out there.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
What do we say?
You can't know someone else's mind. That's the other thing. How do you know what people are going to be offended by?
And we know that people aren't just saying, they're never just saying, would you like to engage my penis? Do you know what I mean?
I would be very surprised if that's how it was said to anyone in Parliament.
So no one is saying that. No one in the fucking world is saying that. But then if that's the case, you kind of know we're also talking about asking people out as well. Yeah. Like, we're not just talking about, like, obviously the sexual harassment that is beyond the pale and that I do think is going on are those piggish comments by those old balls MPs, which is bullshit. And they do need, that sounds like they are fucking dinosaurs, and they do need to stop that shit immediately. But I do get the sense that this is broad, that this covers everything from, those ridiculous comments to
unwanted staring, asking people out for a date, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, all of that stuff. And so that is dangerously broad. But as I said, now the problem I have with rolling in bullying is what we know about, what sexual assault and sexual harassment do. They are sort of like, they'll taint everyone involved, for the victim and accused and whatever, for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? So we're rolling in bullying there. So if I'm a boss who has a young worker, and they've shown themselves to be, at least at the beginning, rather incompetent despite my training of them, and they've done really dumb stuff, and then I speak to them a little abrasively, shall we say, on a Friday afternoon about what they should have done. And then now we're saying that because of this report, that conduct is exactly the same as getting someone drunk, taking them back to Parliament House and raping them while they're asleep, because it's in the same report. It's all been bundled up in the same. So now we're saying that's all the same behaviour. So I feel that's really unfair, and I feel like, I'm not defending bullies. But I think that there are cases, particularly in a very sensitive society now, where people think that being told they've done a bad job is bullying. So now we're saying, or even if you are a bit of a bully, why should you be included? Don't we keep prisoners separate? In terms of their severity. So if you are a bit of a bully, that guy's let's be a bit more appropriate to the facts. That woman,
Yes.
80% of women in Parliament House are bullies. So that woman is a bully. So why are we saying that she should be talked about in the same sentence and with the same severity and whatever, and as a rapist?
I know. Yeah.
Fucking crazy, man.
Yeah. Well, it's like you just said, the actual sexual assault, I think we have pretty clear laws against that, and that needs to involve the police pretty quickly after the fact. So I feel like that's taken care of, but the conflation of everything else is a problem, but also this broad definition of sexual harassment. Like, let me hit you with two stats here, right? So 33% of people experience some form of sexual harassment. 55% of people who experience sexual harassment did not report it because they did not think that it was serious enough. So if their broad definition of sexual harassment does include unwanted staring and asking you out for a date, and that happens to a bunch of people, and they take this survey and they tick the box saying, oh yeah, well, that happened to me.
I suspect it's also in your lifetime as well.
Right. It's not just
like in
Parliament.
the last 3 years or last 5 years at Parliament House.
Well, again, it's hard to know because we're not really privy to the survey here. So that's another issue, I think. You'd want to have a look at how the survey is constructed. But then you've got a bunch of people who don't think it was serious enough to report it. So they might be people that think that, someone asking me out a couple of times was a bit annoying, but it's not really enough to jump up and down about,
Yeah. Well, there's a range of other things that they brought up here. So here's a question. This comes up a lot because I think this will decide where you come down on a lot of this. Should the Parliament be an exemplar for society, like the West Wing or something, or should it be, or is it enough for it simply to meet the expectations of a regular workforce? Because in many cases, it doesn't sound like they're even doing that. But let's just say to tackle it, is it okay to say, let's just make it like corporate Australia or corporate America?
Yeah.
Or does it have to be a pantheon of purity?
Well, I think it should be the same sort of standards that any workplace should be under. Why should Parliament be any different? And I just have some stats here about who works at Parliament. So this is something that you need to take into consideration. Like, there's 227 parliamentarians. There are 2,256 staff employed either as electorate or personal staff to support parliamentarians. Then you've got a number of contracted service providers, other workers, including the media, interns and volunteers. And you've also got a number of federal police working out of Parliament as well. So it's not just the ministers and their personal staff. Like, it is a big place. It is a really diverse place. And there are almost workplaces within workplaces. You've got people working in underneath ministers and stuff that are essentially their own workplaces. So it's a very big and complex place. So I just think it should have to adhere to the standards that say, like a corporate entity would have to,
Well, one of the recommendations to tackle this is to create a new sort of centralized body that controls, that sort of like, can handle the HR issues of all of these different, sort of people.
Yeah. Well, that's not a bad idea. Like,
it sounds
I think
good. It sounds good.
That sounds good on the surface. Yeah.
And I have some concerns, which I'll talk about later. But I think, but that sounds to be, that's one of those recommendations that you go, oh yeah, that sounds like it's the Wild West at the moment. And
it sounds as though there aren't very clear procedures if you do have a complaint that you need to raise, and that you do need that place that you can go, that intermediary place that can help you out.
Well, it also, you brought this up, mentioned it before, the power imbalances creates a very mercurial atmosphere. So basically, there's this quotes here from the report, a focus on the pursuit and exercise of power as well as its misuse, significant power inequalities and differentials in multiple directions, exclusion from access to decision-making, insecure employment, and high levels of power, discretion in relation to employment. So you can lose your job in an instant. Like, it's sort of a high octane sort of environment. But this seems pretty, I don't know how you get a lot of this out, because to me, it's a very expensive popularity contest, with money and privileges at the end of it. And that's the stake. And I just don't understand how you plan to change that ever. Like, that's politics, baby. Like, I think that we've got to take the abuse and take the, those comments and take the, get all that sorted out. But there's some basic stuff here that I don't know. Like, this was where I was starting to get a sense of a particular, an agenda here that I was like, okay, tell me more. Like, and brings on to the next one. This is the big one. Here's one of the main drivers of all of this. Gender inequality, okay? So women's underrepresentation in senior roles and the fact that men primarily control decision-making. The way in which, this is dot points, the way in which roles are segregated with women and people from particular groups concentrated in lower status and lower paid positions. Pervasive everyday sexism and male entitlement. Like, I don't know what male entitlement means. You know what I mean? They say that like that's a scientific term or something, male entitlement. Limited systems and supports to encourage women into senior roles, sexist media reporting and coverage. There's actually a couple of these. So it expands into a lack of diversity among parliamentarians and workers, a sense of entitlement some people reinforced by access to resources, power, and networks, exclusion of particular groups, including women, First Nations people, LGBTQ plus people. What about Two-Spirit? Why aren't they not including Two-Spirit? People from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. That's called
right.
Culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. And
what about disabled?
And people with disability. There it is. There you go. So that's all there too. And then they've got some recommendations to cover this stuff. So basically they're asking to advance gender equality, diversity, inclusion. They want a 10-year strategy, includes targets to achieve gender balance and specific actions to achieve gender balance and diverse representation across parliamentary roles. So basically they want quotas and they want, specific actions to increase representation across the board. But I'm a little confused because actually there's a couple, they've gone on about this. There's out of the recommendations, there was there was 3 huge blocks all to do with diversity, inclusion, representation of women. Now, how do we tackle this? Because letting more women into the workplace by the numbers they've suggested is going to increase the bullying.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Quite a bit. So I'm just going by their report, that's all. Like, I know, because they're saying the recommendations, that a key driver for all of this is that and this is a quote, it's a man's world. That comes from the report. It's a man's world. It's what one of the people said, and they've highlighted it. So, okay, so how do we do that? Bring in more women. And you go, okay, great, let's bring in more women. Oh, but we've also revealed that 35% of male bullies are male, and it says here 61% of single of bullies are female or whatever. So that is a high number. You're going to get so what we're going to do, we let more women in. So what are we going to do to counter the bully problem we're going to have?
Yeah. Well, I think there are a number of things here, but first of all, it comes down to this base assumption that women cannot be bullies, that women are nice all the time, that women can't assault or.
But isn't that sort of dehumanizing? Isn't that sort of like offensive? Like isn't that attacking women's agency? Like, I'm not saying some of those things are good. I'm just saying that they're human and that women are capable of everything a human's capable of.
Well, I believe that, but people just have this idea in their mind that all of these sorts of traits are masculine traits, that men are the only ones that do these sorts of things.
It's retrograde, isn't it?
And I don't know how you overcome this perception that everything bad in this world is man-made and everything good is female-made. It's that old statement people say even today. If women ruled the world, there'd be no wars. But fuck, there'd be a lot of bullying. There may not be any wars, but shit, there's going to be a lot of bullying.
Would be little passive-aggressive comments about what you're wearing too. That would come up a lot.
Also, the other thing is that in the report, it found that people were singled out because of their diverse characteristics. Like, for instance, if they're gay. And
hey, John, how you doing today? Are you still gay? Yes, I'm gay. Oh, what's it like being gay? Is that how it went?
Well, they didn't have any examples, but they were just saying that people were singled out because of their diverse characteristics. But then at the same time, one of their recommendations...
Hey, Chung, that's a really weird accent you've got. Been speaking English long?
Yeah.
I mean, this is what they're saying is going on,
Well, I don't know. I can't tell. But one of their recommendations is that everyone lists their diverse characteristics so that they can create this sort of table of diversity,
This sounds very close to some stuff we've heard before.
But then also at one point they recommend merit-based recruitment with a focus on improving diversity. But that seems like opposing forces here, like an oxymoron maybe. Like, so you want to hire the best person for the job, or do you want the right coloured person for the job?
Well, now you've hit on it though, because in this intersectional framework, you do what the Democratic Party in America does, or you do what corporations or government funding bodies do. What they do is they ignore class and they ignore, real material things. And what they're asking for is they're like, well, what we want is university educated brown people is what we want. Or we want people who are exactly the same as us, politically, ideologically, and whatever, but a little bit of different, a little bit of surface melanin change or whatever, like just enough to be some window dressing. That's what they want. That's what they're asking for. It's so strange and weird. And I think this diversity stuff in this report has damaged it.
Yeah.
I think it's made it it's made it muddled. It's made it it's overreach. It's like, how does this, by saying, because it's well, actually they've said at the beginning of the report, I forget this because they can always stand back and say, oh, well, actually the report is called Set the Standard Report on the Independent Review into Commonwealth Parliamentary Workplaces. But there's such a media focus on sexual harassment and the gender stuff that, if it is about something else, if it is about diversity and inclusion of two-spirit people and, I don't know, like new Australians or whatever, well, then they need to make a bigger deal of that. I think that that it's sort of like they're just sort of adding it on as a bit of woke washing or something. They're like, oh yeah, let's just say the word diversity,
But what confuses me is that where is the evidence that getting more women and more people of colour in the parliament will quash harassment and bullying,
But also, let's just broaden it out. So we get more LGBTQ plus people. So we get a bunch of gay guys in there and they're bullies too? Or we get like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. Like, we get a queer person in and they're a bully too, or they sexually harass someone. Like, yeah. I don't understand. Like, I just feel like I understand what the sort of general idea that what they're saying is that, I guess, it's perceived to be a boys' club or whatever, and that, when corporations or organizations have, a little bit more representation across the board, things, generally have a balance. Well, I'm not quite sure how that manifests materially, though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know whether this report in 10 years is going to be super different. Do you know what I mean? Like, it'll be less concentrated, but I think it'll be the same, but less.
Yeah. I think what would work better is getting more diversity of class in the parliament.
Definitely.
I mean, where are the politicians that come from a trades background, or from a nursing background, or from a teaching background? I mean, they all seem to be, economists and lawyers is highly educated lawyers that are becoming politicians.
Well, that's where you get this. This was sort of brought me on to Christian Porter, who's another one of our MPs. He was the Attorney General. He's sort of involved in this. He's got a historic sort of rape case from the 80s that he's fighting through, I think. And he comes from, money and privilege and private school. It sounds like he's got a bit of a toxic sort of attitude from what I gather. You know what I mean? And maybe some of the problem we've got is that class privilege. You know what I mean? Like forget the gender for a second. Maybe private schools and University of Melbourne and Sydney are there. Maybe they're the problem as well. Maybe we need to have more representation from different classes and different levels of education. Because unlike a lot of snobs out there, I don't think that the average person needs to have a degree to have something to say about the way we could be doing things better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Now, I don't know if you saw the bit about alcohol that they talked about.
I did.
In the report here.
They tried to fob it off and say, oh, yes, we've seen that. That's not one of the biggest drivers. Because they've obviously had a lot of people saying, oh, yeah, just cut down the booze.
Yeah, right.
And they've gone, well, no, it's not a big driver. It's not a big driver.
They want provision and encouragement of opportunities for networking and engagement that do not involve alcohol. And they're talking about on-site and off-site. I mean,
bowling.
These are adult people, if they want to have a drink outside of Parliament, they can do what the fuck they want, I mean, who are they to be policing alcohol in, outside of Parliament? Like inside of Parliament during working hours, yeah, sure. I'm sure there are policies, workplace policies that deal with drinking alcohol. But if you're hanging around Parliament after the day's done and you have a few drinks, I mean, are you going to police that as well? And also, if they're going to bring up alcohol as a problem within Parliament, well, then are you not going to address the fact that Brittany Higgins got completely smashed with that guy?
Maybe that's why they're not pumping up the alcohol. I'm not being conspiratorial, but I feel like they definitely would have had in their sort of think tank discussion about we need to downplay the alcohol, although it is a problem. We need to downplay it because it's involved in one of the lead cases that we're using to justify this report.
Yeah. And
if people get the idea that we're saying that the alcohol is the problem, then it's going to say a lot more about Brittany Higgins than we want it to in this particular instance, or at least about the perception of that, not about her or what actually happened. We'll never know. I don't know what happened, but saying the perception of your average person will be that alcohol was a made her affected her judgment.
Yeah.
Which again,
and you can't say that alcohol is a problem only for the blokes as well. I mean that's another thing that they might trot out.
That's right. Yeah.
Because if it's a problem for the guys, it's a problem for the girls as well.
But that's a problem. Maybe this is so schizophrenic. This report, because it's got no unifying idea of men and women. Like it's not very humanist because it's loaded with highlighted comments from people saying it's the man's world. People look me up and down. It's a boys' club. It's male entitlement. All this stuff. But then, and they're sort of, it's very schizophrenic. Sometimes they're saying, we're all in this together, and other times they're saying it's Mad Men, it's Don Draper, it's, you know what I mean? Like, so it's really hard to get a fix on it. You just go look, but which is to say that there sounds like Parliament House does have a lot to answer for. There is some mad shit going on there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But
I think this report, like you say, it is very schizophrenic, and some of the ideas they've come up with to try and tackle this sort of stuff doesn't make any sense. And even looking at their own statistics that they cite in the report, it doesn't make any sense. So.
Well, I just don't think that it's big enough.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, they haven't surveyed enough people. We don't know what the parameters of the survey are. Like,
you wouldn't want to rubber stamp all this stuff, would you?
No, not at all. And the anecdotal quotes they put in there as well are really misleading too. Like, it's a man's world and people look you up and down. I mean, that could be the same fucking person. Out of the, out of the 3,000 odd people that work in Parliament House, that could be a handful of people. I mean, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So how do we stop? Because obviously they're talking about bringing in that body to control HR and complaints and whatever. How do you create that and have it not become like ICAC or the Spanish Inquisition?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, where the taint of accusation, like the very, if you, all you have to do is just get in first, like at the universities, right?
Yeah.
Like Bettina was saying that there was a case where, a guy and a girl slept together or whatever, and then it was a race in the morning to see who could get to report the sexual assault faster.
Yeah. Well, I think what it's going to result in is it's going to result in segregation, really. Like male leaders in Parliament, MPs, they're not going to want to be alone ever with female colleagues. No, and it's going to push women away from, I don't know, important assignments, important meetings, that sort of stuff, because the men just don't feel that they can ever have a conversation with anyone that's one-on-one if that other person is female. So I think that's definitely going to happen. But I think another interesting to think about is that it's only a very recent thing that men and women work together as well. I mean, in the hundreds of thousands of years that human beings have been on this planet, like, it's only been not even 100 years probably that men and women have worked closely together.
I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this, and he gets roasted every time.
He does get roasted every time. And I thought about Jordan Peterson when I was reading this. It's like we haven't quite worked out the rules around interacting with the opposite sex in the workplace.
It's like, okay, well, why do women wear makeup?
Yeah. But, I mean, he talks a lot about that. Like, if there is no level at all of sort of sexual interplay, then why do women wear high heels? Why do they wear lipstick? Why do they wear makeup?
Vice was not happy with his answers.
No, Vice was roasted him completely. But there is something to say, like we haven't fully worked out the rules on how we're supposed to conduct ourselves when
like when I first meet you. Like, do I shake your hand? Do I get my dick out second and then wiggle it around, or do I wiggle it in my pants and then get it out? I don't know. I don't even know what to do. Or maybe keep the dick in the pants.
maybe on the first meeting, keep it in the pants.
Okay, I will.
But you hear quite often of couples that have met through work. I mean, that's happened for the longest time.
Yeah, we work such long hours now, and I'm a big defender of meeting at work, because, Katie and I met essentially at work, you know what I mean? And, if you're work focused, like a lot of people are expected to be, then how are you meant to meet people? Like, how are you meant to vet them? Like, I think it's really inhuman and unfair. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have to make a decision. Like, once you've been outed, or once, one of you might have to leave or be transferred or whatever. Like, I don't know, like, depending on how big the role is, but it's really unfair. It's just not going to happen. No one is going to agree to that. No one's going to agree.
And we're only human, I mean, if you're working such long hours in close contact with other people, like you may develop feelings for work colleagues and stuff, either romantic or purely sexual. Like, I mean,
Purely sexual. Tell your wife that. Tell your wife, say, so I'm working with this girl, she's, just to be around her. I don't have any emotional attachment. I just got a purely sexual interest in her. Imagine that. Her head would explode.
Shh.
She won't get this far. She won't get this far into the episode.
No, she won't get this far in the episode. She'll be like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
I know. Just always say the worst stuff at the end. No one listens to the end.
Yeah, true. We can get away with whatever we want in the last 20 minutes. No one's listening. But it does go against, what it is, I mean, we're only human, for God's sake, I mean, it's hard to switch this shit off,
It is.
But I just think this whole thing is a fucking mess, this report, and it's really tough to read, and I don't know how they implement any of this sort of stuff, like, and how they make it work. Like, they
want it to happen soon, by the way.
And they do. I mean, the HR thing, on the surface, that looks like a good idea. And I don't know how this diversity thing is going to deal with bullying and
there's 60% women bully problem.
Yeah. I don't understand how they deal with that sort of stuff too, and it is a high pressure work environment as well. Like there's a lot at stake, and there's a lot of big egos, and the sort of people that get attracted to these sorts of jobs are ambitious. They
sociopaths.
Yeah, they are. So some can very well be sociopaths. Like it attracts a certain type of person.
Yeah, they like that. They've you don't tell me you sort of didn't know what this job was going to be like. They love it. Obviously, you love parts of it, and there is an
antagonistic feel to it as well, because you've got the government and you've got the opposition. I mean, you've got that, and that's why Parliament works. Is you've got the government of the day that's constantly being held to account by the opposition. So you do have to be on your toes, and it is a fight, and it is a battle, and that obviously flows out into the culture in various ways, especially if there's lots of pressure and time and long hours involved. So yeah, I just don't know how you turn it into this kumbaya sort of happy, always happy environment. It just seems really unrealistic to me.
It's unlikely. I just want to finish up by talking just something people can take away from them. Like this what we're talking. The reason this report is so bonkers is because of something called concept creep. So this is from Nick Haslam at University of Melbourne. Basically, he wrote this paper explaining that a lot of these terms we use, sexual harassment, bullying, and whatever, have expanded in nature over time to include almost everything. So they're becoming quite broad. So basically he says that in recent years, many of psychology's concepts have quietly undergone semantic shifts. I argue these shifts reveal a consistent trend. Many concepts that refer to negative aspects of human experience and behavior have expanded their meanings. He says, I argue this pattern of concept creep reflects a dominant moral agenda with social, developmental, and clinical psychology involving an escalating sensitivity to harm. So, when we were kids, bullying was like targeted abuse repeated, and now it doesn't even have to be repeated. It can be once. You can just say it's once, it's mental. You don't even have to be the bullied person. You can be someone who heard about the bullying, and you can say you were bullied.
Bullied adjacent.
Yeah, I'm bullied adjacent. So, but anyway, that's just something people can take away from concept creep. So put that in your back pocket.
Excellent. Well, if you've made it this far into the podcast, we thank you. And it's a hairy topic. It's an involved topic, but one that fascinates me really.
Yeah, it's dangerous stuff to talk about, and maybe that's why it's so exciting.
Well, that was our Friday episode. We're back next week with some side boob cinema. I believe we're watching a couple of Carry On films.
Carry On Christmas.
That's gonna be fun, and it will be our sort of our wrapping up week next week too, I believe. We've got a number of episodes that are going to come out over the Christmas period, but
don't worry, we'll be with you over the Christmas period.
We will. We have some stuff up our sleeve, some special things to share with you guys over the Christmas period, but we are sort of having our last side boob for 2021 next week. And who knows what we'll talk about on Friday's show, but I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Always. And, well, Ricky, we said what we said.
Did we ever? Long live the new flesh.
Long live the new flesh.
China, 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 China now, China, China. You know, China. I know China very well. China, 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 China. To me, China. China, 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 China. You want to buy from China? That's great. Buy from China. Buy toys from China. China in particular. China. China. I have people that I know in China. 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 China.